Perfect. And we are live. With thanks to Mickey over at Creative Edge Publicity, we have the honor of getting to speak to author Rachael Tamayo today. How are you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Good. I'm doing well. We were just talking backstage of how you've got the nice weather and we've got the cold snow here, and I'd rather be over where you are.
Yeah, it was like 80 degrees. I was in shorts earlier.
I'm jealous. So Rachael Tamayo is a former 911 emergency operator and police dispatcher, which is incredibly neat. After 12 years in those dark depths, she gained a unique insight into mental illness, human behavior, and the general darkness of humanity. And that's what weaved you into, or that was what you weave into your books now. And you're formerly exclusive romance author, which I thought was also really exciting to hear. And now you've tied your hand at thrillers, and you ended up having an award-winning piece called Crazy Love, and that's what really sunk its teeth into you to stay as a thriller author, and you don't want to ever look back. And you were born and raised in Texas, and you're currently in Houston area with your husband and your guys' two wonderful children.
Yes.
That's very exciting. I was really intrigued when I heard the 911 operator and police dispatcher, because like you were saying backstage, the stories that you've told over the years. And if you guys don't know, I will make sure to link all of her socials down below after our live. Go check her out on TikTok. She's got fantastic videos where you get to hear some of those stories, as well as author things and just day-to-day life, which is really cool. And then to hear that you were exclusively a romance author that went into thrillers because of your past work was also really intriguing.
Yeah. I started as romance, and I think a lot of authors start as romance. It's just like it's and I don't want to say any writing is easy. I don't take that the wrong way, but because writing a book is difficult. Telling a story is God-given talent. I don't, as I believe anybody can learn to put together a paragraph, but be able to tell a story is a gift. And but romance is it's an easy way to learn to write because it's formulated. There's a very specific formula to romance. And so I did write romance, but I was never really entirely comfortable with it. My kids are screaming in the other room.
It's okay. The stars of the show.
Yeah. It just wasn't me, and I'm not in no means a prude or anything like that, but I was never comfortable there. So once I got comfortable in my writing and found my voice, I decided I don't want to lose the readers I had. So it was a slow process. I wrote, now I'm trying to think, I can't remember if Lucifer's Game or Crazy Love came first. I can't remember. But either way, I wrote Lucifer's Game, which is it is the only supernatural thriller that I've done, which Devin is a character in the book that everybody absolutely loved. They're like, no, we want more Devin. But to date, I've not been able to do that. He's a personified demon of lust. Everybody loved Devin.
The book boyfriend for so many people.
Yes, that's exactly what he was. Crazy Love. Yeah, Crazy Love it's a psychological thriller with a very heavy romantic subplot, basically. And that was my first full-fledged thriller. It was a scary jumping off point because it's a completely different animal writing thrillers than it is to write romance, because you can do whatever you want in a thriller. It's almost like writing horror or fantasy, because there's no rules. Happy, sad endings. You can do anything you want with it. And I was just terrified that I couldn't do it. So I wrote Crazy Love, which is basically about a stalker. He's got erotomania. I don't think I'm
Okay.
saying that right. I may not be, but it's a legitimate mental disease, and I wrote the book around it. Basically, it's a mental condition where people fancy themselves in love with complete strangers, and there's no talking them out of it. It's basically no matter what you do, what you say, they're gonna twist it into they love me
Okay.
and I love them is like some kind of clue that you're meant to be together. So I wrote the book around that. Um, I guess you could say if you liked the book, I'm not talking about the show, the book, you would like Crazy Love.
I was gonna say it kind of sounds like that character. How
Right.
doesn't matter how much he's being pushed away. He's like, oh, she loves me. This
Right.
is why she's doing it, and proceeds
Yeah.
to go after it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Th-
And
Thanks, Jay. She's being serious and she's talking, and of course you have to make me giggle with your comment here, Demon of Lust, my Saturday night.
right. Devin turned into just I when I wrote it, I did not mean for him to take the book over like he did, but he really did.
That's okay though, because then you've got your winner right there, right?
Yeah.
Thank
Mhm.
thank you for popping in, Heidi.
Mhm.
Thank you, Linda, for coming. Andreas, thank you as well. Thank you, Jay, for coming and giving me a good giggle there.
Mhm.
Oh, Andreas says makes me think of Ellie in the Hellblazer, the Resident. Oh, Succubus. I haven't read that one, so I wouldn't know. But now that I'm intrigued, we'll have to make a list of all these books together and
Yeah,
read them and compare through them. And now you have your next piece coming out called Mine,
I
and it's
do.
coming out February 25th, 2022. And you
Mhm.
just got your paperbacks, and they
I
are
do. You guys
gorgeous.
are going to be the only ones that have seen it so far, despite this outside of the pictures on Amazon and whatever. I literally just got these in the mail yesterday. So this is the paperback. I'm trying to put it up here so you guys can see it. Mine.
A Deadly Sins novel. Ooh. I
It's
love the cover.
actually the longest book that I've written to date.
Really?
And yeah, when I got it, because when you're writing books, you just, at least with me, I just write, and the story is what the story is.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been one to crank out like a 500 or 600 page book. My books are very fast paced, and I don't really put a lot of filler in them, and so as a result, they've never been really. They're long enough. Don't get me wrong; they're always at least 300 pages, but this one's like 420 pages, so it's the
Okay.
longest one I've done.
It's a little
But
bit over like your typical size 3 to 350 page novel.
hmm
Yeah, absolutely. That's exciting. We like those longer books when you get to a little bit more in there, especially when you really get sucked into the story.
hmm
So, was writing always a passion of yours? Did you know you always wanted to be an author?
Yes, yes, I did. I I've always written. I can't remember not telling stories. Um, I remember when I was a little kid. I mean, as far back as elementary school. I'm not saying they were good stories because they weren't, but but I just liked writing stories. I would write little silly, paragraphs and show them to my mom, show them to my friends, show them to my teachers. I would draw the little pictures. I would staple them together. I remember even writing little short plays and putting them on in front of my elementary school class. Not so much because I wanted to act, but just because I like to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
And as a teenager, I was writing full blown novels, but that was back. I'm 44 years old, so that was quite a ways back. I was using typewriters, and my dad got me a word processor at one point. Um, like full blown books. I wanted to publish them, but I had no idea how to do it. We didn't have the internet. I had to get those big fat, publishing books that gave you like
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of pages of, publisher email addresses, and you just had to like mail manuscripts off. You know, it was a completely different thing back then. I didn't know what I was doing. But I've been writing. I wrote forever. I've been writing since I was like a little child, and then I stopped in my 20s or so. Life just happened. You work, you get married, and everything, and I just stopped. I never stopped wanting to write. It's like I would walk around with stories in my head and just daydream characters and plot lines, and and then I was dispatching, and um, I got put on night shift, and I decided to start. What if I start writing again? To start putting my stories back on paper again. And the Friend Zone series, that was the first romance that I published. That was actually one that I wrote as a teenager. But
Oh.
yeah, the characters, the stories are completely different because the stories I wrote as a kid are just awful. But the characters are the same characters. The characters were created when I was like 16. I kept the characters. They've been living in my head this whole time. And so I wrote it again. And my husband found out because this time I took it seriously. This time I took the time and figured out how to do it and got the critiques and learned how to write it in my voice and all that kind of stuff. And my husband, he told me, I didn't even know you wrote. He had no idea. Nobody knew. And I was like, guess I didn't tell anybody. I was afraid to tell anybody because it's like you think it's silly and you don't want to share it, and but here I am, my 9th book coming out next February,
which is very exciting. And I want to know more about what that's about. But I did have a question here pop up from Heidi, which kind of goes hand in hand with one of the questions that I had. Was my question that I had here was your past work, like how has it affected your writing and in your movement into thrillers? But Heidi does wonder, are any of your stories based on your dispatching experiences?
Yes, actually, Heidi. Being when I switched from romance to thriller, and now that I don't dispatch anymore, I did dispatch for 12 years. I won multiple commendations and awards when I was a dispatcher.
Wow.
By the way.
That's not a hard job, or not a hard job, not an easy job to have. That would be traumatizing as well, to be a dispatcher and to hear these things coming in.
Yes, and I know this doesn't answer the question, but just because I know people always want to know why I don't do it anymore, I did have to get out of it because I was developing PTSD because of one of the last calls I took. But I do talk in depth about a lot of the calls I took and why I left and all that stuff on TikTok. I have a whole 911 storyline on TikTok if you are on there. But in answer to your question, Heidi, yes, Break My Bones was actually inspired by something that happened when I was a dispatcher. The first year I was a dispatcher. So I was very green rookie dispatcher and working in small town where I actually still live, and it's very, very tiny police department. And this man came into the lobby. It was like on a Saturday or after hours or something like that. It was so many years ago I can't remember, but basically when they're arrested, their items are taken into property and held there, and basically he'd gotten out of jail, and he'd come to retrieve his property. So he'd come to the window, and we were there. Usually the people in records handled the lobby walk-in people, but they weren't there because it was after hours. And he'd come to pick up his stuff. So I told him, have a seat. We have a detective that handles that stuff. So, excuse me. I told him, have a seat, and he sat down. So after the detective came out and took him back to the back office, he was there to pick up guns, by the way. My partner, who'd been there forever and actually still works there, she's been doing it for like 20, 30 years now.
Wow.
She's in records now. She was in records then. But she was a dispatcher for many years before she'd stepped out of the records. She was a backup dispatcher. It was her data sitting dispatch with me. She goes, "Let me tell you a story about this guy." She knew exactly who this guy was. She said he was arrested for domestic abuse. That's why he was in jail, and that's why he was here. That's what he just got out of jail for. She said his wife had come up here. She had been beaten really badly, and she said that he woke her up with she had a gun. He put a gun in her face, woke her up, and told her he was going to kill her. Proceeded to beat her up. She doesn't even. I don't even think she knew why. It didn't even matter why. And he went back to sleep. Or I don't know if he'd just gotten home. I don't really know all of the details. But the next day, she came into the police department when he wasn't home and turned him in. And it was bad enough. She did not go back home. The police were out looking for him. And when they found him, they pulled him over on his way home. And in the back of his car was a shovel and a tarp and all those kind of things. So he was arrested for the assault. She was not from here. She went back home to Europe with her son, and she's okay now. But he was, they suspect, by her coming to the police department, she saved her own life. And when she told me that story, and I looked right into the face of this man, you know, he looked as clean cut and as nice as any guy that you'd ever see on the street. You know, he did not look like a monster. And his story stuck with me. You know, I never forgot it. And that story is what inspired Break My Bones.
Oh my goodness. You know, some of those stories are probably the most terrifying stories that you can read, even if they are fiction or they're based on real life, with, you know, being a little bit more detailed or added to for the effect, are some of the most terrifying stories that you can read. Anything that's got that psychological or like that true life horror, that like true crime feel to it, is terrifying. Absolutely. I couldn't imagine doing what you've done, and I have so much respect for you. I can't believe that your ex-colleague is still in that work, maybe not taking the calls and whatnot, but oh my goodness, like
Yeah, I mean, if I'd stayed, because I left that department after 6 years because the shift, I was on the evening shift. I was working like a 2 to 10, and my husband was working a day shift, and we never saw each other. So if it was either switch to a different department or end up divorced, you know, I had no choice. I enjoyed working there, but I had to make a choice. If I'd stayed there, because it's such a small town and nothing ever happens here, it's just little bitty, you know, petty drug arrests, and you know, every now and then there's a bank robbery from time to time, you know, suspicious murders and things like that, but almost never anything huge. I would probably still be doing it, but I moved to a larger agency, and that more crazy stuff happened in, and
Absolutely. Well, incredible success. Thank you for doing what you did. And in the meantime, it's brought some or added a little bit of gump to your thriller stories that you've jumped into now. Mr. Morningstar, hello and congrats on your success. Thank you for joining us today. Have you seen The Guilty with Jake? I can never say Jake's last name correctly.
Gyllenhaal.
I always want to say like Gyllenhaal, or I've heard it so many different ways. I never know if I'm saying it right or what. I butcher it every time. He was a cop assigned to a dispatch work, but the film gave some insight into how it really, you know, how the stress level and calls really are in real life. I have not seen that.
Me neither. I've
Yeah.
never seen it.
That's scary, but I mean, it sounds really good, but I mean, it sounds like it's going to be really intense for sure. Absolutely.
I get asked too if I've seen the show, the Dispatch TV show, 911 or whatever it's called, and that one
Oh.
with Halle Berry. No, because honestly, it would probably just I'm not saying that this one's the same way because there are plenty of, like even the cop shows. Like
Mm-hmm.
cops don't often watch cop shows because they're just frustrating because they're so unrealistic. Um, but there are a couple that are actually really well done. Um, this one sounds like it might actually be well done
Yeah.
because it's just frustrating because you're like, that's not how that goes. That's not what happens. It's like on watching Law and Order. You're like, no,
That's not real life.
Law
I
and
think
Order.
that I think that happens for anyone that's in that line of work and they watch something, TV show or whatever that's around
Mhm.
that. I know my background is
Mhm.
insurance. And when you see like
Mhm.
like an action movie, I'm like, listen, insurance wouldn't be covering that. How can they
Right.
do that?
Right.
And I always get
Mhm.
told that I ruin the whole movie when I start saying stuff like that. I'm like, sorry, I'm just being realistic. But it's
Right.
very true. Before I move into any other questions, can you tell us a little bit more about Mine is All About or the idea of the story? Because that is your next release and I'm really excited for it.
Yes, I'll try. It's so
Hard.
I have a hard time talking about what it's about, honestly, because it's so twisted up, the story. Um, it's the most difficult one I've written because the plot is so complicated. Um,
Well, right there, you've already gripped your teeth into me because
it's
now I'm
the
intrigued.
plot is extremely complicated. Um, it's about well, let's back up about how it starts. Um, main I can't even honestly tell you who the main character is. Okay, that's how complicated it is. We have part 1, part 2, and part 3. And in each part, there's a different main character.
Okay.
Okay? Part 1, the main character is a middle-aged man, divorced, 17-year-old daughter. And he goes on a birthday trip to Vegas with his brother. It's a surprise. He's not expecting it. He owns a business with his brother. They're business owners together. So he goes to Vegas, and he wakes up the next day, and there's a woman in his bed. He's never seen her. No memory of how she got there or who she is. She's very young, like early 20s, and he's in his early 40s. And he's a decent enough guy. He's not the kind of guy that typically does stuff like that. He's like, as lovely as you are, I don't think this is gonna work. But then he finds out she's saying that they're married, and he has no clue. And of course, this sounds like a cliche, right? I woke up married in Vegas, and you know, oops. But it's not. It's not a cliche. Um, he's from West Texas. He's like, well, damage is done, I guess. So they just have a fun weekend together, him and her and the brother, and they just, goof around for the rest of the weekend. But she's real. He's like, we'll just get an annulment. We'll just, annul it and it'll be done and whatever. You know. And the brother's laughing at him the whole time because his brother's a bit of a, man whore, and he's been married a bunch of times, and he's usually the one that gets in trouble with the women. And he's like, haha, now it's your turn, and he's been teasing him the whole time. So they get back. He goes home and goes back to Texas, but when he's home, he gets his first hint of her crazy because he goes home. He's left his phone in airplane mode. He's tired. He just goes straight to bed. Wakes up the next day and he's got like 150 missed calls and messages. And he sees that they're all from her. All of them. She's freaking out because when he got home, he didn't check in. Okay? Like, that's not normal. He's like, this is just some chick, I had just a little fling with in Vegas, But it turns into this nightmare, absolute nightmare for him. She shows up, follows him, shows up, turns his life completely upside down. A murder happens.
No, thank you.
The
So the
story
title is
is-
clearly like it really has something to do with the story, that obsession.
Yeah.
That
But that's the thing. You think, I don't want to give away too much because that's why I struggle to tell people what it's about, because I'm afraid if I tell you too much about what it's about, it's going to give it away. Because there's a murder that happens that ends part 1. And then part 2, we switch gears.
Okay.
And then the main character shifts. And then we start in, on what's actually happening. Okay? And it's not what you think. The story is about greed. The story is about greed. It's the sin of greed. So
it sounds really good, though.
It's very twisted, and there's just so many turns in it. In the blurb on the back says you're not going to know what happens until the very last page. And I can say that's actually true. You're not going to know what actually is happening until you get to the last chapter of this book. And it's probably going to be a book that you get to the last chapter, you're going to be like, what's happening? That has been happening the whole time, and you have to go back and read it again just to, okay, now I get it. Because
wrap your head around.
It's very twisted. And don't think that this was easy for me to write, because it wasn't.
It doesn't sound like it. I mean, I have so much respect for authors piecing together these books, especially when you have all those twists and turns, or when there's presumed story for the reader that ends up getting the shock of what the real story was. It can't be easy to do. I have so much respect. You guys are so incredibly talented. You have no idea. Absolutely. Hyperactive Bookworm, all the way from Australia. Thank you for coming.
I love books that surprise me, shock me, and are twisted. And I love putting that in my books. And I can't always succeed in doing it, but I have to say, so far in the series, this is going to be the best one. This is the best one so far. And hopefully, each one will be better. But this one is the most complicated plot. You are going to start at thinking it's about one thing, and it is not. And then you're going to think it's about something else, and you're going to think you get it. You don't get it. You don't got it. I promise you don't got it. I love those books. If you read Carnal Knowledge and you got to the end thinking that you knew the killer, I cannot talk. Trust me, I write better than I talk. If you read Carnal Knowledge and you got to the end thinking, I know who the killer is, and you realized you didn't, then you understand what I mean there. So far, I have not had one person come to me and said, I knew it. I knew that person was the killer. Every single person has been like, what? I was completely shocked. Didn't see that coming at all. So yeah, you're not going to know what's happening.
Those are my favorite. The ones that really twist with your mind. So is this the type of series where you have to read book 1 and work your way through, or can you pick and choose which book you pick up throughout?
No, you can read them in any order.
Okay.
They're not linked. The characters don't repeat or anything. Okay. It's a standalone series.
Okay. That's exciting. I like that, because then you can pick and choose, or, that sort of thing. And I know there was a comment above where Andreas was saying that your cover artist is incredible. Seeing the covers to work together looks just amazing. So I'm going to have to go and be more of a creeper and go snoop some more, because I was already snooping on Amazon and, adding on to my wish list, but I want to make sure I didn't miss any of them. Okay, so a hard question for you, but I love asking it. Do you have a favorite piece of yours, whether it's something that you have published or something that you've never completed or that's in the works?
I would say my favorite thing that I've written. That's a hard question.
It
Because
is
I've
a hard
written 9
a lot.
published books and
Yes.
a couple that aren't published anymore. So, short stories. That's a really hard question. My mind
If you
goes
can't,
back to Crazy Love. I think mostly because it was what got me to where I am with the thrillers. It was what I used to break through that fear, so to speak. That I love thrillers. I read thrillers. I've always wanted to be a thriller author. I never went into it be like I'm going to be a romance author, but um, as I was afraid to try my hand at it. But I stepped out of my comfort zone and wrote Crazy Love, and then won an award for it, or
mm,
not won it, but it was in the top 10, or top 5. But um, so I guess Crazy Love because of that attachment, because of what it did do for me.
it really switched the gears for you.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, then that's going to be the one that I'm going to have to check out first, then, because
Mm-hmm.
that's where it's really done the switch. And that's the one where your mind keeps going back to. And I know a lot of authors, when I ask that question, they'll
Mm-hmm.
say, it can even be just the piece that I'm working on in the moment. And it can
Mm-hmm.
switch day to day, which one's my favorite, where my
Yeah.
mindset's at, what I'm working on. So,
Right.
but thank you for answering it, even though it was a hard question.
It's difficult. It's not even my best one, I don't think, because I get better with each book. But yeah, I'd say I'm most attached to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got that special memory, that
Mm-hmm.
piece that will ever forever be there. How about your
Mm-hmm.
family? Are they really supportive of what you do, whether they read your work or whether they just give you the time to sneak off and go do what you need to do and get your writing done?
Yeah, yeah, they're supportive. I can write. I'm not a real like um I can't think of the word. I'm not a person that has to be in a certain place at a certain time or has
Hmm.
to have certain music or anything to write. If I'm in the zone, it doesn't really matter where I am. Um, so I can wait or I can not. But yeah, so they're supportive. I've written on my phone before. So in a doctor's
Wow,
office or whatever. Um,
that's a
yeah,
skill to
it's
have.
been a while since I've done that. But yes, I have done that before. But oh yeah, they're definitely supportive, most definitely.
That's awesome. And that's a skill to have, to be able to be where you are. It doesn't matter when you're in the zone, you're in the zone, because,
Yeah.
that's one of the questions I would have for you would be, if you've lost that and the words are just not coming and, you're on a deadline, what do you need to do
Hmm.
to get the creative juices flowing again? But it sounds like you don't necessarily run into too many of those problems when it's working. It's just working for you.
Well, I've had writer's block for quite some time. Um, I finished this one and then got stuck. Well, not really stuck, I guess, but just I've had writer's block and I've never had it before. I mean, I think a lot of writers ran into that last year because of COVID and stress and pandemic and
Yes.
everything that happened. And um, a lot of writers I've talked to have had this same problem. Um, but I'm coming out of it now.
Oh,
Um,
good.
I, I'm coming out of it, and part of with me, sometimes it seems like writer's block, and it's actually not writer's block because I write in what's called deep point of view, and I write very deeply in my character's head, and I write in first person, so I get very deep into my character's head and when I write, and so when I finish one book, sometimes it's a real jarring and it's a real struggle for me to pull myself out of one book and put myself into another. And I have a really difficult time sometimes pulling myself out of that story and starting another one. And sometimes it's just that, but this time it was actual writer's block. But I'm coming out of it now, actually. So I've done it by reading. Um, I started reading a little bit outside of my comfort zone. and it's actually made a huge difference.
Oh, do you mind if I ask
So,
what you've been reading that's been helping?
horror, actually, Stephen King, which is not nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, the books, because I was always afraid to read it because I don't like to be like scared, but um, but I decided because I read a lot of stuff about what he said about writer's block and pushing yourself, and he's like the most prolific author of our time, whether you like him or not. He is. And so I read Gerald's Game. That was the first
Okay.
one I'd read, and it was it was eye opening simply because it was so different. And then thinking as a writer, because you can't help it when you're reading, um, how he. I mean, you look at his list, and no two of his stories are the same. You know,
No.
and he's a character based author. When you really read his stuff, there's not a lot of filler in there. You know,
No.
like you read it, he doesn't really go into a lot of descriptive depth of what characters look like or what the room looks like or whatever. A lot of that little fluffy stuff. He gets deep into the characters' minds and into their heads and what their personalities are. And, you know, I mean, God, to be able to write a whole book as from the point of view of a woman, one character chained to a bed, and that's the whole book, like an entire book. Um, and then after that, I read Dolores Claiborne, which has
Mm.
always been a favorite movie, and it's just I've done one after another, and now I'm just finishing up The Shining. So that's
It's one of my
I
favorites.
absolutely loved The Shining.
Yes.
So different from the movie, but like way different from the movie.
Some
I was
people
telling my
say
husband
it's
about it because he's not a reader.
he likes but he's seen the movie.
Has he seen the movie? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's been a lot of years since I've seen the movie. Long time.
Yeah. I a
But
lot of people said that that it's
yes,
not
it's
that different.
different.
It is absolutely. Some people say it's, or a lot of
And
people
it
say
is
it's not,
different
and
than
I'm
the
like, what are you
movie.
talking about? It is. Yeah, absolutely. I
Because
agree.
the movie was about Jack. The movie was about Jack. The book is about Danny.
Mhm.
It's completely different. Like, and as I was reading The Shining, and I'm realizing some of the things that I need to do in my writing, and the plot that is starting to realize I've started the book over that I'm writing right now 6 times, which I do anyway, but I just have had just awful writer's block. But I'm finally coming out of it, and I'm actually starting to move along a little bit finally.
Sharon says Gerald's game is pretty terrifying, and she says thank you for the question. She hasn't read any of your work, but now she's excited to try. Me too.
Thank you.
That's what
Yes.
I. This is why I love doing these interviews, because even if I haven't had the privilege of reading
Mm-hmm.
the author's work yet, before I interview
Mm-hmm.
them or have them on, talking with the author, getting to know your personalities, getting to hear more about your work and where
Mm-hmm.
your ideas come from, it just makes it that much more exciting to pick up the work. And then when you do, it's almost like you can feel the author's personalities jumping off the page. You can see their quirks, their traits, and things from themselves that are within the characters. So, talking about characters and stories, do you think it's more important to have, like these incredibly well done, well rounded characters, or do you focus more on having like this incredible epic, storyline, or do you like to have that perfect balance of both?
It's I like the characters to be human,
Mm-hmm.
not perfect. Because nothing is more annoying to me than a perfect, flawless character. You know,
They're not
but I
relatable.
also, yeah, exactly. But I also don't like a character that is so flawed that they're unrealistic.
Yes.
Um, you know, that because there's bad people have their good side, and good people have their bad side. Um, and one of the lines in mine is in mine. This one is there's a monster within us all. You just have what is that thing that's going to unlock it? You know,
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, so I liked my characters to be human. So I've had comments like in Carnal Knowledge that the main character Ren was annoying, or the way she reacted to the assault that happened to her was unrealistic, or just whatever comments. Well, not really. I mean, people react differently, and from my experience, her reaction was pretty spot on. But she's human, and
Hmm.
maybe you don't like her, but that's okay because maybe you don't like everybody. It's okay if you don't like them. This isn't a romance where you're supposed to like the characters. It's okay if you don't like them. You know, it's okay if you're annoyed with them.
Hmm.
And the plot is very important. It's super important. My plots are fast paced. I jump right in on the first page. You're going to be dropped right into something. If in the prologue or in the first chapter, in the last couple of books, it's been the prologue. So read the prologue, but you're going to be dropped right into something that's happening. It's important, and then you're moving on. I don't start with backstory. Backstory, you don't care about backstory if you don't care about the character. You don't even know who the character is. What do you care about? What they've been through.
Hmm.
So you tell the backstory later. So that is important. The plot, the fast pace, get into the action, tell their back drama later. That's how I write.
So you've got like the perfect balance of all of it. You've got like these incredibly characters that people are going to relate to. They're going to have some type of emotional connection to. So something happens to them, they're going to feel it. With it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
these really exciting, fast paced, incredibly like heart pumping, like the edge of your seat type stories. That's my
Yeah.
favorite. That's my favorite. I love the perfect balance of both because I'm not necessarily character driven or story or plot driven. I
Mm-hmm.
like that nice balance of both, so I can enjoy the story and what's happening, but I have that connection with the characters. And for those people that may not like certain characters, within your books or anybody's books,
Mm-hmm.
those characters that we don't like, they clearly bring out some type of emotion in us, and they're
Mm-hmm.
always going to be in our head, whether it's negative or positive. So to me, the author's done their job then, because they're
Right.
going to be forever stuck in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with that,
Nothing makes
absolutely.
me just laugh with glee more than somebody telling me how mad my book made them. My boss, actually, I gave her a copy of Break My Bones, and she called me. She said she was sitting in the bathtub reading my book, and she was like 10 pages in, and she was so mad because and Break My Bones is the story of a woman that has recovered from domestic violence, and he has gotten out of jail and has returned to claim his wife, basically, and bring her back home. But she was angry. She says, I was legitimately pissed, and I was like, just like, I
I did
was
my
so
job.
happy. No, exactly. I mean, that makes me so happy because if I wrote it so that I bring out that kind of strong emotion, you
Hmm.
know, that's exactly what I want. I write in the deep point of view, so I try to get deep into the characters' heads and put that on the page. So when you're reading it, you get deep into the characters' heads and you feel what they feel to a point, you know, and you can connect with a character because they're flawed, because they're not perfect. You know, you may not agree with the decision they make, and which may make you angry. But yeah, I love it when I bring those kind of emotions out in readers. It's great.
Absolutely. Do you ever have like wars with your characters? Like you're really deep in them and you want them to go a certain way, but the
Mhm.
story and just what they're saying to you is going a total opposite way?
Not yet. I'm struggling now, actually, with what I'm writing, and um, like I said, I think because this book that I'm writing now, now it's to the point where it's not so much writer's block, is I'm trying to figure out my character. The one I'm writing now is jealousy. But it's not between a couple. It's not a man and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. It's not that kind of jealousy. I don't want to give away too much because I'm still writing it, but I've got the plot figured out, but I'm struggling with one of the characters, and that's kind of the thing. I'm like, what is he gonna? You sit and think, and it's like, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna go this way, or is he gonna go that way? And that's where I'm at. I'm struggling with him, and it's very slow because I don't know what he's gonna do. It may be the longest one it's going to take me to write, but I think it's honestly going to be the best one.
It's going to be a good one from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Andreas is wondering, with the 7 Sins, you're moving into some dark territory that inspired tons of stories and films. Are you going for stories that blend thriller and horror, or supernatural even?
Thriller. There's not going to be any supernatural, no like ghosts or anything like that. They're not gory or anything like that. I mean, well, carnal maybe a little, because there's blood involved. Quite a bit actually, but it's not like horror gory blood. I'd say thriller, maybe verging on horror, but not quite, I guess.
Okay.
But not supernatural.
Sharon says that she knows, I know her. She'll pick up everyone that's on the interviews. Thank you, Sharon. You're such a sweetheart. Maybe we can plan some more buddy reads then in the future of Rachel's work, and we can dive into it together and have somebody to talk to about it with. It's like going to a movie. You go by yourself, you come out, you've got nobody to chit chat with. But if you could read a book with a friend, you have somebody to gush about it with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Morningstar, I just finished Perfect Days, a Brazilian kidnapping story. So Crazy Love sounds like the perfect book to continue that creepy stalker feeling. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, definitely. I would say so. He stalks her. It's like she thinks he's this harmless guy, and he's nothing like. I also explored mental illness a lot in the book. So you kind of, I wrote this book from 3 different point of views. I do that also. I switch. I write in first person, so I switch from one point of view to the other. And funny enough, male point of views are my absolute favorite. I don't know why, but they are. I love writing from the male point of view. But I write from the stalker's point of view, and Crazy Love is actually available on audiobook as well. And that narrator did a phenomenal job. He did a fantastic job narrating. Noah, which is the name of the guy in that book. But that was actually on audio.
Well, I know what I got to do now, because with my crazy reviewing list, having books on audio is just like the icing on the cake, because I can get to them so much quicker and so much easier.
Yes, and I listen to audio exclusively. I wish my publisher now did audio, but they don't.
It's hard, and it's expensive to do audiobooks. I know a lot of, like indie self-published, and a lot of publishing companies or smaller publishing companies don't do it because it's costly. It's a lot of money to put it together, but I mean, it's exciting. It's too bad that it's not a little bit cheaper, because audiobooks are so easily consumed, and so many people will do audiobooks. So it really takes a huge chunk of clientele when you don't have those audiobooks out there, because there are people that exclusively do just audio, right?
Yeah, I do exclusive audio. I don't have time to read books, but I love audio. I'm listening to The Shining on audio. I'm almost done with it.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I listen to the car mostly, and it's great.
That's exciting. Well, maybe you're a publisher now. Maybe eventually they'll switch gears and then you'll find all of it.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. It was like I was never gone, you guys. I swear. There's only a handful of people that say that they're having the same problem. I'm like, StreamYard needs to fix it. So Liv says, ooh, I love stories that get inside the head of the antagonist. I agree. When you are reading from the evil within the story, I don't know what it is, but I love the bad guys. You know, I love the villains.
Mine is written from multiple points of view, and it also does get inside the head of the protagonist, starting from part 2. So, yes, this one most definitely multiple points of view. It was actually really fun to write. So, yes, definitely pick that one up if you like that. It's on pre-order right now.
Do you have it? Yes, I was going to say pre-order is up for mine. I was checking it out. Do you have a favorite or a favorite and a not so favorite part of the publishing process? Oh, sorry, I have to interrupt you for a second, Rachel. I have to ring the bell because Heidi said she just picked up a copy of Crazy Love.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. I was saying in one live show that we had a while back that I need one of those big bells that you can like ring on the side here. And I don't have that. I just have some Christmas bells, but it works.
I'm sorry, what were you asking me?
Sorry, do you have a favorite part and a not so favorite part of the publishing process?
Editing is actually becoming my least favorite part now. It used to be all, so exciting, and I'm traditionally published, by the way. I'm not self-published. I'm traditionally published. It's not because I have any issues with my editor or with, taking their advice or anything, because they're editors for a reason, and I know that if they ask me to change something, it's for the best. It's just because it's just, I've read the book. By the time I've turned it over to them, I've read it in the writing process so many times, and then I have to read it so many more times during the editing process. I'm just done. It's like, think of your favorite book and read it 20 times in a row.
You probably know it inside and out by the end.
Not like that, It's because, I've read it so many times by then. But after I set it down and I'm done with it and it's published, I'd like to go back and let a couple of years go by and then pick it up and read it just like a book. I'd like to do that, and I haven't actually had time to do it, but I want to do that. My favorite is getting it finished and seeing the reviews and seeing as good people start popping up on Goodreads even before, and then Amazon after they've bought it, seeing what the readers think of it, good or bad. I just getting it into the hands of the people that read the books and what they think of it is my favorite part.
Absolutely. Liv, you're making me giggle over here. I was listening, but she said, oh, snap, we have a purchase. And she says, there's a bell for purchases. And then she says she's embarrassed by how effective it is to making her want to purchase something. I would be right there with you. I'd be like, wait a second, if I purchase something, they're going to ring a bell? I am so there. Maybe that's part of my tactic. Maybe that's why I need one of those big, hand ringing bells just hanging from my ceiling or something. When you're writing, do you write for yourself, Rachel, or do you have a certain audience in mind?
I don't even know. I mean, I write a book. Yeah, gong. That's
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah, could you imagine that though? Isn't that bad to be ringing those at certain times?
No, you think of that scene in Pitch Perfect 2 where they're at the riff off And they got that giant gong. They need one of those.
Don't my whole floor. The next thing you know, the camera's gonna be falling over, and
I guess to answer your question, I kind of like read. I don't. It's not that I'm writing for myself, but I write what I would like to read. And I know what
yes,
my pet peeves are, and I keep those out of the books, like slow pace and too much backstory in the first chapter and annoying characters and just whatever. I write what I would like to read, but I don't necessarily write for myself. If that makes sense.
and then that brings in your audience that you have and keeps them coming back to your work as well.
Yeah. I
That's
hope so.
Figures. So far, it seems like
Yeah.
it. So I know we've kind of talked or touched a little bit about this as we've been talking, but how much of the story do you have planned out before you put pen to paper?
Almost none. Basically the barest of bones of the story, because like I said earlier, I've started my current work in progress over 6 times. And that's because I just have like the seed of an idea, and I take that and I start it, and I'm like, no, that's not right. I'll start it again. Okay, that's not right. Something's wrong. And then I take it out, and then I do that over and over again until I do get it right. Because I can't plan, I can't plot. I've tried it, and it was just a horrible experience, and I can't do it. The way I'm doing it now is just the only way. As frustrating as it is for me to get 30,000 words into a book and back up, start over, that's what I do. But they come out so good that I'm not going to change that. It, because I'll get to a point in the book, and like even if it is halfway done, I'll get to the point and I'm realizing, wait a minute, what if this happened? But if that happened, then I got to go all the way back and change this. And so that's what I do. And I'll go back, and some of it is a lot of copy and paste, and then I'll have to go through and make some major changes. But that's what happens. But in this one, it's been 6 major scrap and start over. But yeah, almost nothing, almost zero. Like if you ask me how I started this book in round 1, I couldn't tell you.
It just happened. It just came to me.
I don't know. It just evolves, and I don't know what it was when I had the idea. So
you just need to turn and look at people and say, listen, I am talented. I am a storyteller, a professional storyteller. It just comes. It just flows. It's just there.
It does. It does. It does. So at some point, the story starts to tell itself, and I'm thankful for that.
Liv would like to know, how fast do you draft?
That depends on how long it takes me to get the story where it needs to be, the plot right. Once I get the plot right, the beginning of it, I can get it in about 4 to 6 months. Okay. Usually from beginning to end, like starting it from nothing and finishing it. This one though, my current one is not even close to that. But in this one, mine is probably closer to 9, like from beginning to sending it to the publisher. And that's with, the multiple drafts and everything. I don't need as many drafts now. So, because I started over so many times, I think. I don't have to do multiple drafts, and I'll just get it finally where I want it, and then do 1 or 2 good edits, and then send it to the publisher. So
send it off and get working on it. Yeah, absolutely. That's still really impressive, and I'm sure it probably, like you said, depends on the piece itself.
Yeah, it does. It really does. But yeah, the next one after this one is going to be Jealousy. It's a bear, but it's going to be good because the hardest ones are usually the best ones. This one was really difficult. This one was difficult too. Don't get me wrong, it was. But there's actually a lot of giveaways and freebies going on with pre-orders for this book. So
There is. Keep your eyes open. I was looking, but
mhm.
sadly, I know a lot of them are US only because the cost for shipping is just.
Well, for the gift cards, I mean, that's fine. I've got no problem with international shipping because it's just the one winner, you know? I've done international shipping before. So,
It's
um
crazy though, the cost. Like, it makes it so
mhm,
hard to.
it really, really is expensive. But it's just the two winners. For my contest, it is basically one grand prize winner. All you have to do is pre-order the book. And if you go to my website, the directions, all the rules are there, and the prizes and everything. But the one grand prize winner is going to win a $50 Amazon gift card, which will be emailed to you. And then um, hoodie from my swag website, um, which I have a link for in my TikTok on the. I think you actually can get to it on my website as well. For Deadly Sins hoodie. And the second prize winner is going to get a signed copy of Carnal Knowledge and Deadly Sins 20-ounce coffee tumbler. And
Oh,
I
that's
also have a lot
exciting.
of free stuff that the publisher is giving away that you can also get if you pre-order. That is also on my website. You pre-order the book, send your confirmation to my email, and you'll get access to all that free stuff, which is a reading journal, a signed book plate, and a 75% off code for any of the swag on my Deadly Sins swag website. Um, and mine, like wallpaper for your phone or for your computer. There's a couple other things too, and I can't even remember what they are now. All that stuff you can get for free, plus the contest for pre-ordering. You just need to go to my website and the directions and the email addresses there.
Yeah, absolutely. Heidi, I'll put it in as soon as the live's done here. I was having problems with StreamYard trying to set up the broadcast, and it wasn't letting me put in any details. But as soon as we're out of here, I will go and put all of her information down in the description so it can just be a quick click for you to her website, to her TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. Thank you, Nick, for
But I will
coming in
throw
and
it out.
joining
It is
us.
RachelTamayoWrites.com. Yo, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed meeting all
Yeah.
of you guys.
Yeah, this is such a blast. We are winding down here. We have hit the hour mark, and Rachel has kids and life, and I don't want to take up her whole entire Sunday evening. But I do have one. I've got two questions that I usually like to end off with that are kind of fun. I'm going to pick one of them for you, and it's if alive or dead, what who
Mm-hmm.
would you like to have at your dinner table, your dinner round table, to pick their minds?
My mom, my mom passed away
Oh,
four
my
years ago.
heart.
4 years ago, under some unfortunate circumstances that
Oh my
did
goodness.
I can't really talk about. I don't have time to talk about on here. And honestly, it would be her. It would be my mom.
Oh my goodness. You don't need anybody else other than that right there. That would be everything at your table. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
but honestly, she would be the one I would want to talk to because I honestly have questions. I did not get to say goodbye to her, and there's things I like to ask her. So
Oh my goodness. If only we could make that a reality then. That would be life changing. Andreas, I'm going to shake
well,
the
we'll see them
bell.
all again someday.
One day. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I know you said this afternoon, but I'm going to shake the bell anyways because I'm going to take that as a count. Um,
Yes,
Andreas, you're
thank you.
always he's always so supportive of going and purchasing the books when the live shows are coming, if there's time to be able to get them in and try to read them beforehand. So Andreas, thank you for being so incredibly supportive in the book community. I know I appreciate it, and I know that all of these wonderful authors do as well.
Yes, thank you.
Oh my god, the bell. Liv, what are you doing? You didn't purchase anything. You don't get the bell. Well, thank you so much. And again,
Thank you.
February 25th, mine is out. Very excited for it. That cover is beautiful. It's incredible to know that it was featured on video on my channel first. Or at least the cover in your hands anyways. I know there's pictures
Yes,
and
you guys
whatnot.
got to see it first.
In Rachel's hands, excited. Her copies have just come in. And like she said, there's contests going on, so check out for those. After we end this, I will pop on and put all of her socials in the description, so it's a quick one click for you. Rachel, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sitting here and chit-chatting with us. Thank you to everyone that came and asked questions and that interacted. Make sure you go and check out all of her socials, especially her TikTok. I love your TikTok. I'm awful at TikTok. I'm still learning the ropes.
I'm a nut too. I'm crazy.
Well, I love it, and I always feel like a creeper because I'm always sitting there going, "Oh, flip!" And TikTok's so easy. You go to somebody's page and you can just easily flip, and it's a couple-minute video, and then it's on to the next one, right? And so you've consumed their whole entire page, and then you're thinking, "Wow, am I a creeper?" Or
I know I don't post enough either. I don't have enough ideas, but yeah, I know I'm a nut. So
it's hard to. You've got your life, you've got your family, your kids, your writing, your editing, everything that's going on in your world. You're busy enough as is. So to see that you're holding those socials and making them run as well, I mean, kudos to you because you've already got enough on your plate. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for coming. I appreciate it. I enjoyed getting to know more about you and your work. I'm excited to dive into it. Maybe I can plan some buddy reads with some people that were in here or anybody that comes by and watches this after the fact. And you're welcome on anytime, Rachel. Just give me a poke if you ever want to come on again. And again, thank you to everyone that came. And we will see you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You guys have a good Thanksgiving.